so cool. I really wish I could have taken your video game design class.
All right, what do we got? Ready to go?
Yes.
So, my name is Willie.
I'm Jess.
And we're interviewing Mr. Kappler,
There he is.
who's for our road trip. First question, what made you want to teach?
I think probably the biggest reason that I have for wanting to have become a teacher was the fact that both my parents were teachers. I remember like being very young and sitting around the dinner table, and that was like kind of the topic of discussion, and just from that perspective, that was always an option. It was always something on the table. I admired my parents for having done that, and looked up to them for wanting to be teachers. And I think just kind of going through school, I always had my eye on, like what class I wanted to teach. I think for a long time it was math. And then when I got into high school, I had a teacher at Kittatinny who was really good. His name was Bill Meyer, and he taught a lot of the same stuff that I ended up teaching now. He was just an awesome teacher. I think he came at us with design and pre-engineering types of classes and things like that, and I really enjoyed those subject areas. He was definitely a big source of inspiration for me, ending up going back into education, becoming a teacher.
That's really cool. I didn't even know any of that.
Yeah.
Never told you guys.
I never knew your parents were teachers.
Yep.
So for the second question, what got you into animation?
All right, so for the computer animation course that we ended up developing here at High Point, like in the time that I was here, I was thinking back to subject matter that I just typically liked. I really liked computer animation. It was something that when I was in high school with that teacher that I had just identified, he let me kind of experiment and play with a little bit. I did an independent study in that area back in, I guess it was like the late 90s. There really wasn't a whole lot there. It was like right around the same time Toy Story was coming out, and like some of the 3D games were kind of like starting to become more popular. It was something that I was exploring really just kind of on my own. But I had a teacher that let me do that, and I just kind of got into that content area. As far as it coming to High Point, a little bit came from like my own personal self-interest, but also what kids were asking for. So, I started giving other kids the opportunity to do the same thing that I was able to do, and we kind of built a course out of that area. But I come at it from a technology education perspective. That's how I teach it. I teach it like from a design background. So really, it's computer animation, but I teach it from like a design standpoint. So it's really the same kind of content and set of standards that we were teaching anyway. But we just, have kids that wanted to learn about computer animation. It's been a very popular class. It's been a very successful class since we started running it. And it really kind of came out of student interest and also, I guess, teacher interest.
Branching off from that, what made you, just like video games and stuff?
Video games and stuff have been something that I've been interested in just organically, probably the same way you guys were interested in it from the time I was young. So I grew up in the 80s, and that was around the same time Nintendo started kind of putting things out, and Sega and all that kind of stuff. And the types of games that we're making in the video game design class now, and the kids are playing with in the VR and stuff, are things that I would be drooling over if I was a high school kid getting an opportunity to do that. So I think that's kind of like where that came from. We wanted to give high school kids an opportunity to play with the same types of tools that industry professionals get a chance to use, and I think it's so far it's been a really cool experience for the kids that are in that class. Kind of blends together some of the topics from computer animation and also computer science and maybe music and art class, and it's a really, really, really cool subject area to be able to teach and like work with kids in. So
What is one thing you want every student to take from your class?
I think probably the one thing that I would hope all kids get from, I guess, any kind of tech ed class that runs out of this room, whether it's architecture, CAD, computer animation, or video game design. I want kids to understand how to solve a technological problem. I want them to understand how to design something. So whether it's a video game, or whether it's a computer animated movie or short film, or some type of part or something like that from CAD, or architecture, I want them to understand that process of design. So identify the problem, collect the information, brainstorm and analyze the problem, develop a solution, get some kind of feedback, and then improve the design and just kind of cycle through that. And I think that's universal with any of those areas. So I want them to understand that. And then I think probably one of the other big things that I would point to as far as like what kind of competencies kids could have from being in these types of classes or from being in computer animation or video game design would be how to teach yourself a little bit. And that's something that, again, like I was doing the same types of activities that kids are doing in these classes in 1996, and a lot of different programs have continued to change and evolve over time, and there's not always a textbook or a teacher who's going to sit there and go through that stuff with you. And I think in a lot of ways you do have to learn how to learn. Like you have to learn how to teach yourself how to constantly stay up to date and learn new things. I think that's really important because as you get a job and you work towards doing something in the real world, you're not going to have necessarily somebody who's going to sit with you and hold your hand and go through that stuff. So maybe you're doing freelance and you're working at home and you have to figure this stuff out on your own. Like you have to know how to learn. You have to be capable of learning new things and figuring that stuff out kind of on your own. Or even if you're in a more professional setting where you do have like somebody who you report to over top of your boss, they're not going to want to sit there and like walk you through that stuff. So you have to be able to go out and find information and understand it and apply it back to what you're doing. So I guess it's really three things just to kind of sum up. Like, what do I want all the kids to learn? I want them to understand better how to solve complex technological problems. I want them to understand design and be able to use design to their needs. And I want them to be able to understand how to teach themselves some of the technical pieces of software and how to update that knowledge and things like that over for their own purposes.
I remember that was like a big thing in our class, like last year, because you'd always be helping everybody. Like, and I remember you actually like had to start the class by saying like, if you can, like, I want you to really try to figure it out on your own, because like I can't help you through the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's not out of laziness,
no, it's
which
not.
It could be perceived, and I think sometimes maybe kids want you to walk them through and baby step them through everything, but the reality is that's just not how things work in real life. Most things are hard, and most of this kind of stuff is very challenging, and if you don't focus on what you're doing and attempt to figure it out on your own, you're going to get left in the dust, and there's not going to be somebody who's right there next to you all the time. So it's important, to be able to learn new things for yourself. And I think that's one thing. If I can help kids, become more confident in their ability to go out and get information and process it and figure things out on their own, then I think that's fairly successful.
I like that answer a lot. Have anything else to add, Willie?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr.
Yeah, thank
Kappler.
you.
Thank you guys.
taking
Thanks
the
for
time.
coming back.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Cool.